Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is Joe Scarice, your founder, co-founder, and co-host of the Creative Bird Strategies House and podcast here live on Clubhouse. And we're live pretty much just about everywhere else as our co-founder, Mr. Yardell Perkins, sets us up in so many different venues. It's hard to keep track nowadays where we are. I always get somebody, hey, listened to you on here or there. Kind of funny. We're pretty much out there broadcasting just about everywhere right now. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. Uh, Very interesting week. We'll get some updates to this morning. What's happened in the past week? I'm sure you've seen some of my posts and updates to the market, which was extremely volatile this morning. It was really crazy. It was a really exciting morning, week to watch Squawk Box. I can tell you that. So again, let's get started here this morning. My name is Joe Scarice. I'm a senior loan analyst at Lendmark Capital, providing asset-based lending for real estate investors throughout the country, nationwide. And we're here every Saturday morning on Clubhouse at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, providing education, strategy, and insight. We try to keep it to 60 to 90 minutes. We try to keep it consistent with different subjects. We like to tackle different subjects. So we're always identifying subject matter. Currently, we're scheduled out till October with subject matter. So if there's something we are not touching on, by all means, please reach out to us so we can definitely get something scheduled. Always open to possible other opportunities of discussion. Want to thank our sponsors. We'll first always start off with them. Um, I like to thank obviously Yordell Perkins of Perkatech, our social media strategist, who brings all our social media strategy, website design, website accessibilities, um, just a plethora of content, illustration, and he's there really to provide assistance in your social media growth. I'd like to thank MB Capital, your unsecured business line of credit program, which provides unsecured business lines for investors in the LLC for investment, for strategy. It's a great opportunity to get accessibilities to funds when getting into new deals or current deals. I'd like to thank Linda Pelagas from Realty 411. Uh, she has provides a national publication as well as national events throughout the country. I've been partaking in some of them throughout the country the past several years. We've partnered on a couple of events, and I want to thank her. She's always been a great sponsor of our podcast. And then I'd like to thank Lendmark Capital, where I'm a senior loan analyst. We are a nationwide asset-based lender, providing lending accessibilities to the entrepreneur in the DSCR space, 1 unit through 4 unit, 5 through 25, fixed to rent, fixed to flip, new construction, blanket loan scenarios, strategy and advisory, and that's nationwide. I've been with them the past year, really growing into a lot of new products coming out and programs over the next couple of weeks. Very excited about them as well. I think it's going to definitely help a lot of my clients take their portfolio to the next level. So let's dive into what's happened this past week. I mean, we have the media softening, letting us know that it's peaches, creams, and dolphins politically, which is we know is not correct. And they're trying to soften your thoughts to what really is going on in the market from um, a economic perspective. We are not in great economic conditions. We're not in a recession. I don't foresee a recession. Um, the numbers don't justify a recession, but you're going to feel very muddy in economics from an inflation perspective. Cost of spending, cost of living is up, and that's having impact in various areas. We saw a massive um, cat bounce on Monday. Literally one of the worst market changes in the stock market in Japan in the past 40 years. China's numbers are down. U.S. had a massive bounce. I'll call it a cat bounce because it didn't last. It kind of bounced back, and but it was a warning shot to what could possibly happen if we don't have the right infrastructure and the right economic um, things that are in place that government is supposed to really dictate. Where it really was letting us know, hey guys, this is a reality check. These past 3 or 4 years have been terrible, um, and credit's getting a little tight, but it's still available out there. The 10-year Treasury took a dip below 4%, but everybody's, oh, the Fed, man, I can't wait till the Fed changes the rate and lowers the rate by a quarter point. That might not make any impact. Remember, dropping the Fed rate does not always impact rate on the mortgage side. And you got to follow the Treasury notes. The 2, the 5, and the 10 have been hostile the last year. It's been extremely rough to follow. And if you follow the economy and the very smart people out there that are evaluating through hedge fund based and bank based information online or on different types of broadcasts throughout the week, it was all over the map. So the rates dropped about an eighth, right, for a minute, and then they kind of bounced back. They settled out around 6.59, but at the end of the day, there was no difference in people coming off the sidelines within 24 to 48 hours to look at a market that's very stagnant for the home buyer. For the investor, it's a great opportunity, but for the home buyer, it's extremely stagnant. It's inflated still. Values are topsy turvy. You always have somebody, oh, my values are coming in, and my market's very busy. I got tons of buyers. That's great. You have a ton of buyers. Where are the closings? Where are the pictures of all your closings that you're having at the closing table? So what, you have 25 buyers that want to buy a home. Not too impressive. If none of them can buy a home, and an eighth in the rates are not going to make that much of a difference in an inflated price, you're still at the same spot 48 hours later. So this week was a kind of a test of wit, where people thought, hey, we're going to have rates are dropping down to 6%. We're going to be getting things are going to get rocking into the fall. Didn't happen. Just didn't happen. So I'm not here to talk about the glass half full or half empty. I'm just giving you a reality check from a real estate investor perspective. We are still at status quo. You still have to sharpen your tool shed and your tools and your weaponry to go into battle as a real estate investor, identifying opportunities. Yes, GDP is very good. Inflation came down a tick on Thursday. Some numbers were okay. Jobless numbers were up, were down. Unemployment numbers were up. You got to watch that. We still have foreclosures looming in various markets. You still have to buy better and buy smarter as an investor. And we're going to break down today's discussion fundamentals of owning rental properties. So some articles that caught my eye this past week, obviously, that rate bump and market bump on Monday, I will call it a mini cat bounce, rattled the market Monday going into Tuesday from the previous reports that came out. But it all kind of restabilized by Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of right back where we were. Housing affordability is still a little out of reach. People are looking at smaller homes. They're not going after the bigger homes right now. So size does matter. Nationwide rental inventory is climbing. And I see a more aggressive competition in the rental market right now. People are not coming off those sidelines in a summer fall market. Opportunity zone home prices rise a little bit, so there's some opportunities in more of the lower C neighborhoods. Apartment construction projected to reach historic highs in 2024. So again, it's a very interesting market where you're seeing a lot of apartments coming to the front line. You're seeing a lot of development with conversions, and you're starting to see a leveling. But they do foresee rentals rebounding in the end of this year into next, because of the fact is there's a lesser population buying homes, and that's a huge opportunity for the investor. So I follow and post a lot of articles for Mortgage News Daily, DS News, Mortgage Point, Bloomberg. I'm typically posting those up and writing articles on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Trends, Threads. Threads, Alignable, Twitter. So please follow me. I'm always trying to update you with kind of the best information that I can find and identify. But before we get into the fundamentals, I want to talk about some markets that are catching my eye that I feel are going to be more and more the affordable places to live for the renter or the home buyer. So if you're going to be a flipper, these are markets you want to keep an eye out for. And if you're going to play landlord long term, these are markets you want to keep look out for. Number one is Fort Wayne, Indiana. Number two is Huntsville, Alabama. Number three, Wichita, Kansas. Number four, Springfield, Missouri. Number five, Davenport, Iowa. Number six, Hickory, North Carolina. Number seven, Montgomery, Alabama. Number eight, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Number nine, Lincoln, Little Rock, Arkansas. Number 10, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Number 11, Lexington, Kentucky. Number 12, Lafayette, Louisiana. Number 13, Omaha, Nebraska. Brownsville, Texas, number 14. Lincoln, Nebraska, number 15. Peoria, Illinois, 16. Louisville, Kentucky, 17. South Bend, Indiana, 18. Toledo, Ohio, number 19. Number 20 is Rockford, Illinois. 21 is Indianapolis, Indiana. Number 22, McAllen, Texas. Number 23, Kansas City, Missouri. Number 24, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And 25, Dayton, Ohio. What are we seeing here? The Midwest is flourishing. The Midwest is making some serious moves. It's all going inward. You got to go with the trends and see what's going on here, okay? The affordability, taxes, utilities, your entire overhead is working in the favor of the middle markets. Hang on 1 second, I want to invite somebody up here. All right, so let's tie into that to our fundamentals of owning rental properties. Understanding your investment goals. What is it? Is it cash flow versus appreciation? Decide if you're aiming for immediate cash flow, monthly rental income exceeding expenses, or long-term appreciation, property value increasing over time. I've had discussions with clients where they really were digging deep into the rate and whether it was cost benefit to buy the rate down or take the rate at par. And we ran those numbers. And I just worked on a portfolio with a client, 3 different buildings that he was buying at the same time. And he's like, I can make my money back in 12 months by buying this rate down. I should, and in the long term, this rate will work in my favor. He really understood the rate. He understood also appreciation and the depreciation scale of taking in a property. He understood risk tolerance. Another item that you want fundamentally, you want to do your market research. Location, location, location. Like I just gave you the top 25 affordable markets in the country, 2024. The property's location significantly affects rental income, vacancy rates, and appreciation potential. Research the local trends, employment rates, and population growth. Target tenant demographics. Understanding your potential tenants, families, students, professionals, and ensure the property suits their needs. Financing and budgeting. Understanding what is going on in the asset-based lending space. What is the required down payment for a single family, a 2 through 4 family, a 5 through 25 family? What are the renovation leverage that you're allowed to get on buying a property in need of rehab? Is it mid-rehab, light rehab, heavy rehab? Based on your experience, your credit score, the purchasing price of the property, and the after repair value. You need to understand those numbers. Also, another fundamental is very important is property management. Understanding the property management landscape of your market. Self-managing versus hiring a manager. If it's more local, concentrated, maybe that's something you can facilitate in understanding tenant screening, conducting thorough background checks. Number 5 is the legal considerations. Landlord tenant laws. How is it working? Now, there's 2 cities that were in that best affordable place to live that are in very landlord balanced markets. One is Tulsa, one is Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I like those markets. they work very favorable toward the landlord, and not like in favor of the landlord, but a balance with the landlord and the tenant. Where there's some places like Philadelphia, getting somebody out is like, pulling a tooth out yourself with a little string and a doorknob. Okay, so you got to really understand your landlord tenant laws, and your management company. If you choose to use a management company, they need to understand the type of lease agreement that needs to put in place. Number six is understanding maintenance and repairs. Having that button up group. I'm meeting more maintenance companies being established right now, providing maintenance outside of what property management does. I've met two in the last week. They're focusing on just strictly doing button up work, turnaround work on a unit, and maintenance calls. Not working directly as a management company, but strictly as a maintenance group. Number seven, you got to look at the tax considerations, the deductions, the depreciation, the mortgage interest, the property taxes, and the repairs more than ever to understand your bottom line. Good record keeping, maintaining accurate records of all income and expenses related to the property, simplifying tax filing, and maximizing deductions. Number eight, you should understand the long-term strategy, scaling your portfolio, considering how to expand your portfolio over time, whether through acquiring additional properties, refinancing, or reinvesting profits. And understanding what always is going to be the exit strategy if you're thinking you're going to be a flipper as well. Ongoing learning and adaptation, staying informed of real estate market and law changes. So staying informed about trends, new regulations, economic conditions that could affect your investments, adapting strategies. Good morning. I have some great roses amongst the thorns here this morning. Welcome, Amy and Melissa. We'll go with Amy first. Good morning, Amy. Welcome. Brief overview of who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the fundamentals of owning rental properties.
Good morning, Joe. My name is Amy Palvido. I am the founder and CEO of Facilla Max, and we're a real estate technology company. Prior to being a tech founder, I've been a longtime real estate investor. I started real estate investing back in 2008. Started with single-family homes, got into multifamily units, and was a developer before I hit the pause button and moved into tech. I will say that owning rental properties, obviously, when you're first starting out, you hit a lot of the keys, Joe, but super useful is to understand, getting really good. I'm talking about post-closing. Like, this is like the longest part of the life cycle of your investment. I mean, a lot of people focus on the transaction, getting through the rehab, and all those great things. But when you actually post rehab, you've got a tenant in there, or you're owning this thing for 5, 7, 10, 20 years, who knows how long you're going to own the investment. Basically, what's going to save you is getting really, really good at property management at the end of the day, and asset management. And property management and asset management are two different things, and you need to understand those pieces. Asset management is really focused on understanding, are you capitalized correctly? Do you have enough in your reserves and things like that? Property management typically is dealing with the day-to-day tenant relations, maintenance, all those other things, and you have to balance them. You have to make sure that you're covering both bases. So that would be my suggestion to people is when they're owning properties. And I'll get back to you on the affordable places to live. McAllen, Texas is my hometown. Brownsville, Texas is also in the Rio Grande Valley. I believe both of those are really good markets, but also because Elon Musk is moving his headquarters, the Starbase headquarters, to Brownsville. So if you're looking at Brownsville or McAllen, those are pretty good markets. So they're way at the bottom of Texas on the border. But those are good markets for sure.
So, Amy, you've been now converted over to the prop tech space. Are you pulling data, or your cohorts pulling data more than ever to see where the trends are going for these investors? Like, I mean, I got into a debate with a national speaker on my Facebook. He's like, "Oh, Eastern Tennessee is killing it. No shit, it's killing it. Everybody's moving to the middle of the country right now because they feel safer there. I mean, it's not rocket science, but like these top 25 markets that I just brought up, most of them are in the Midwest, right down the middle of the Mississippi. What happens to the Northeast and the Floridas of the world and the West Coast with all these people moving to the middle? Like, what happens to what happens to their market, like their rental market? Like, what's left? Is it all affordable housing? Is it Section 8? Is it rent control? What happens to the urban settings along the coast?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is all. So you have to take into account the supply of housing, right? So that has a lot to do with the price, versus the demand. I mean, this is normal economics. Supply in a market versus demand in a market is going to set your price. The other things are what is the what is the average median income, because that also sets your price. And so you have to understand those two kind of dynamics that are going on, setting rent prices. And so, and then obviously your rent prices are going to determine what you're going to be able to pay for that house or that investment at the end of the day. So if everybody's kind of moving and coming to the middle of the country because everything else is unaffordable, well, then eventually there's not enough demand, so the pricings are going to have to lower. It's going to fluctuate for sure, but we still have a housing crisis in this country. I mean, no matter what's going on, we're still hundreds of thousands of millions of units short. And so that's the reason why some of these prices are staying inflated, is because there just isn't enough supply. And so, but you're gonna fight. We're gonna fight this for probably the next 5, 6, 7 years. I bet you money, because we cannot build them fast enough to meet demand. And I'm not sure when that changes or how that fluctuates or whatever it might be. I mean, we are having, people keep talking about how we're having less and less babies, but that's a 20-year horizon. But right now, we don't have enough housing.
Yeah. So I think what that equates to is a lot of these office building retail properties that are right now resetting and are empty or emptier. They're not going to be able to facilitate their debt stack, and they're going to be given a lot of Fed money to convert at least a good portion of the buildings into a mixed use environment where people will eat, work, and live. I think there'll be a rent control component to it. I think there's going to be um, a more of a Section 8 piece to each one of these buildings, probably roughly 30%. I can tell you for a fact in the state of New Jersey, you're no longer allowed to kick the can for Section 8 housing. Every new facility of development has to have affordable housing in it. You can't kick the can to the next town. You know how they used to sell it off to the next town to take on Section 8? Well, that's what they used to do in Jersey. Like, if I was in Millburn, New Jersey, or whatever, New Providence, or whatever town is, you say, hey, Kenilworth, will you buy my Section 8 requirement? Or Union, will you buy my Section 8 requirement? Oh, sure, we'll take that on. And then they would get the tax break, and those other towns would avoid having the Section 8. They can't do that anymore. They all have to take on Section 8 housing to fill the need of rental needs for the people that are kind of below the income availability to buy their own home or rent right now. So Section 8 is becoming extremely popular in the office conversion, multifamily conversions, urban settings. I don't think that's going to decrease. I think the urban settings are going to, over the next 5 to 10 years, like what Amy's saying, is going to fill that need of rentals. And the suburban markets are going to be, it's going to be case by case. There's always going to be good markets, whether it's a down market or an up market. You're always going to have good. There's always going to be, oh, my market's killing it. There's no property staying on the market for more than a week. Okay, that's great. That's a good story. But you're the only market. There's other markets that are not doing so well. So, there's forecasts out there in the new apartment supply that it's going to get absorbed. And I think, there's going to be a balance of rental opportunities and landlording opportunities for the next decade very steady and stream. Now, the only problem you're going to have is what are you offering that separates you from a lot of these developers that are doing these eat, work, and live environments? Or they come with a swimming pool, they come with the gym, they come with free coffee. What are you going to do to separate yourself from the rest as a landlord? And how are you going to stay liquid? I'm having a better discussion with clients now to understand reserves, cash flow, and having money to keep buying and scaling their portfolio. Amy, did you want to add something before we go to Melissa?
Yeah, the other thing too is if you're a couple of the trends, I did want to give you a couple of trends. If you're owning rentals and the things that you need to kind of include in your rentals in order for them to lease well, a couple of things is obviously you need to have or be in an area where there's great internet connectivity, or even if it's even if you're not providing it, like from a like if you're in a single family home, I never provided the Wi-Fi, like. But some people kind of might switch to where they kind of expect that. Like, is there like an Airbnb model where when you show up, it's just there? You can probably make some extra coin by providing that Wi-Fi service, right? But if you're in it, if you don't have, if the Wi-Fi is kind of expensive and the cell phone signal sucks in your area, you might want to invest in something that will boost that signal, because that is basically people will not lease from you if you're in a dead zone. They just will not. And so you need to understand that for sure. And then also every different market has different priorities, but understand your tenant, your ideal profile of your tenant. So if your tenant is a contractor, single person, whatever it might be, then you need to make sure that your rental matches what that person needs, right? So you need to go into your understanding your rental and how you're going to that's going to determine what you buy. That's going to determine a lot of different things. So understand that if it's a family, obviously you're buying a lot of 3-2s. If it's a if you don't want to deal with pets and kids and people ruining your house from that kind of environment, then you're going to cater to a different person. But you just need to take the time to figure out, who do I want to cater to? That's going to determine what kind of investments you buy, and then what you're going to include. So a lot of it starts with, who do I want to rent to?
Yeah.
And you have to take a second to figure that out, for sure.
Amy, you brought up some great points, and we're going to keep moving this along. I think, listen, adding that extra bathroom, finishing the basement, creating more space is going to get you a better tenant. Okay, meaning a tenant with family, they're going to stay longer. Your deferred maintenance will be kind of middle of the road or lessened, because they're going to treat that unit correctly. Okay, you got to put some precautionary deferred maintenance protections in the property more so than ever before, so you don't have high renovation costs during the occupancy of the unit or the turnover of the unit. I'm a bigger fan of hard laminate wood flooring. I'm not a fan of carpets. I'm more of a fan of protecting the walls with Lawan or some type of ceramic, or some type of precautionary measures where they're not scraping up the walls and things of that nature. Um, doing Having set up inspections on your properties in a quarterly basis, having a pesticide pest control group going in there twice a month, and making sure there's things that are not happening with rodents or bugs and things of that nature. There's things that need to be put in place that the tenant knows they're being observed, but yet these things that are being done are for the benefit of them, and they're going to appreciate that. I think you made a good point. Adding that second bathroom, adding that extra room in the basement, making more luxurious space. I know there's an extra expense to it, but I think if you buy it correctly, listen, there's three numbers I always want to know as a lender. You can give me a great story. These people, they write these beautiful emails to me, and I read them, but at the end of the day, there's three numbers in my lending space: what the after repair value is, what the repair costs are, and what you're buying it at. Does that make sense? Why are you buying this property? I had somebody call me yesterday. Hey, Joe, I got $100,000 I want to put into a property. I want to do short-term rentals. Okay, no problem. How many properties do you own? I don't own any. Okay. Why do you want to buy a short-term rental? Well, I want to kind of own a secondary vacation home for myself. Said, that's not a short-term rental. That's a secondary home. So are you concerned that the market rent will cover your debt service if you don't get any rental income on the short-term rental side? Well, I'm not overly concerned. I said, then who's paying the bill if you don't rent that out and you have to encumber that entire debt? Uh, um, well, I'll make money. I make okay money. I said, well, do you make okay money or really good money or really not so good money? So I didn't mean to insult him, but it was like he didn't really have any, like everybody, everybody looks at the shiny object, STR, MTR. They want to use these acronyms. At the end of the day, does the rental income in that market cover the debt of that property the day you close? Right? It's common sense fundamentals of owning rental properties. There's an income and there's a debt, and then there's profitability between the two. Melissa, good morning and welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, the fundamentals of owning rental properties.
Oh, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Clubhouse. I hope everybody can hear me. I am at the lake shore again at the campsite. It's great here. I can actually hear the waves hitting from my campsite. That's how windy it is here in West Michigan today. My name is Melissa King, owner-operator at One Last Die LLC Virtual Assistant Services. I offer realty, bookkeeping, and admin services. I'm also a state of Michigan licensed referral agent and notary here. Good stuff already. Amy, I love that. Amy, the asset management versus property management, a definite difference. I couldn't agree more. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, between self-managing and property managers, if you're going to go back to basics, figure out who you're going to rent to, don't forget to put those assets into an LLC. Don't keep it in your name. You need some protection. You're also going to have to get your own LLC checking and savings accounts. Most clients that I have, I see they do the checking, but they don't often keep money in the savings account, especially if they're using a property management company. They don't need to. The property management should be keeping reserves, but I've seen those reserves limits fluctuate as well. So it is a balance, absolutely. Any business is. So you got to keep those things in mind. If you're going to self-manage, make sure that you have enough time to do that with everything else that you're doing in your life. Otherwise, get a property manager and make sure that you interview that property manager before you sign the contract. There are lots of basic things to consider, definitely, before you get into this business. So, and I did like, who do I want to rent to? That's where I'm at right now in my early stage of the investment game here. So that's where I'm at. And that's all I have for today, Joe.
Well, thank you, Melissa, and please enjoy your suffering at the campsite.
It's not suffering; it's great.
Yeah, my idea of suffering is Residence Inn Marriott and afternoon happy hour or a brunch buffet being available. I'm not really a camper kind of guy.
That's okay. I can do both. To be honest though, we're glamping. It's a mini travel trailer. It's
okay.
Everything. We've got TV. We've got some Wi-Fi. I mean, I wouldn't be able to sit here if we didn't have Wi-Fi availability here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is definitely important to everybody.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, I would be a little stressed out being out in the woods. I'm just not a camper kind of guy. Never was I was never a good Boy Scout. If that's good to say?
Scout either. Just happened to marry a Boy Scout, and I learned from observation.
Yeah, I get it. So you tied into a couple things that catch my eye. Like, I'm seeing more people realizing they got to take these properties out of their personal names. They realize this finally. They realize also the banks don't want to do those loans anymore. That the non-bank is kind of taking over this industry for the investor, the non-QM investor. Like when somebody wants to be an investor, they don't call the banks anymore. They either call a broker banker that might have accessibilities to non-QM, or they call a non-QM lender if they do a little more digging. Is what I'm seeing. I think there's more broker bankers now doing what I do And then they find me by doing a little more research saying, hey, are you the direct lender? I'm like, yes, I am. People actually broker loans to me. Um, and then we have that deeper discussion. So I think the banks, for the most part, are flatlining in regards to investing right now for at least that single family up to 25 units under like a million. It's just not a space that they want to be involved with. Are you seeing that?
My opinion on that, I would say, is banks just don't get our industry. Mm-hmm. They're still behind the eight ball on that.
Yeah, they want the paperwork. They follow regulations, and the fundamentals of owning rental properties is to grow and scale and create cash flow. Okay, it's all about cash on cash return. It's all about cash flow. It's about the individual's credit score, the LLC, and their reserves. And you brought up a really good point, Melissa, in regards to reserves. I don't think people really understand what they should have in place for their portfolio. They've never really done an underwrite. I love the self-proclaimed people that claim they are underwriters for investment properties, and they've never worked for an underwriting company. They've never worked for a lender. So I don't know where they can get the self-proclamation of being an underwriter, but that's okay. Yeah, listen, I could call myself the head of the circus clowns, but I'm not I mean, I'm not a physical clown. I'm clown-like, but I'm like, I don't understand why people take these classifications and other people trust them on that. I mean, listen, underwrite your portfolio. If you don't have at least 3 months reserves, meaning PITIA per property sitting in a reserve account, you're not underwriting your portfolio correctly. If you don't have unsecured business lines of credit in the LLC for the what ifs and the unforeseen to not impact your personal credit, and you have lines of credit in the name of the LLC, then you're not evaluating your portfolio correctly. Like, you need to have those accessibilities. I've seen too many people over leverage their personal debt on credit, impacting their availability to proceed in any form or fashion. And most of those individuals fade away into the sunset because they're over leveraged and they got to unload and they got to reset. So
I was just going to say that. Yep, reset. Yep, I've got a client right now that is basically doing that. They're going to have to reset.
Well, I mean, like, and again, there's nothing wrong with resetting. Like, I had a client that had 50 properties. His sole purpose this past year was to bring balance to his portfolio, understanding his cash flow, bringing a bookkeeping service in place, understanding his expenses per property, and having a certain amount of reserve in his account at all times. It took a full year. He's accomplished that. He actually took a year off from his job and then turned around and is going back to his work with proper management in place, proper maintenance in place, proper bookkeeping service in place, understanding his income and expense, and now with a proper reserve base in for his portfolio. And now he could decide if he wants to dump a couple of the properties that don't make sense, because now he knows which properties don't make sense or they just don't make as much as they should. And now he's thinking about whether he should cut bait, take that money, reallocate that into performing opportunities. He's changing his construction way of thoughts and how he's renovating his properties. So you want to be able to do that from the beginning. You want to have the bookkeeper in place. You want to understand the cash reserves. You want to have your LLC in place. You want to have the unsecured business lines of credit. You want to understand the financial capability of what's out there, understanding what neighborhood you want to invest in, understanding the type of schools that are going to attract the type of tenants to where you are. If that's not the objective, if it's just about a Section 8 play and you want to know what the Section 8 requirements and allowabilities are in your market and comparing that to the market rent. These are fundamentals day in and day out as you're evaluating properties. Is single family through 4 family your space? Is 5+ units your space? Have you ever owned a mixed use property with a commercial space? What's the difference between commercial and residential? You need to understand who that tenant looks like, what that tenant looks like, and what your lending options are out there. In the mixed use space, when there's commercial and residential, your LTV cuts back automatically by 10%. It doesn't get the same availability as if it was a 5 unit all residential instead of it's a 4-unit with one commercial space. They're going to cut that LTV back just because of that commercial space. You need to know that. And does it still work for you having 30-35% into a deal instead of 25% into a deal? And how long will it take you to get that money back over time in cash flow or appreciation or refinancing the property? Like, say you found an opportunity where you could buy and renovate a property that's mixed use. Does 65% LTV work for you on the back end? You need to understand that up front before you get in there. You can't just expect, oh, I'm going to get 75 or 80% on the way out. That's not guaranteed. That's not guaranteed at all. Travis, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, thoughts to the discussion this morning, the fundamentals of owning rental properties.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Good morning. I'm Travis. I'm a real estate broker here in the Houston market. Noticed that Houston was not on your list, which I'm not really that surprised. Neither was any of the big cities in Texas. So we also do property management. I've owned rental properties now since 2002 was when I moved out of my first house and moved into a second house and rented out my first house. Couple things. I've liked what I've heard so far, and Amy really touched on some good things between asset management versus property management. I think I would break that down even more into tenant management and setting tenant expectations when it comes to leasing out a single family home or a townhome or something. Everybody likes to talk about what their rent is, and honestly, that's not what we're doing, right? We're not renting a house. We're leasing the house or the home or the townhouse to a person. It's not like renting a car. It's not like renting an Airbnb. It's leasing a car. There's a big difference between renting a car and leasing a car. And leasing a house is the same thing, right? There's responsibilities that you have when you're leasing something. You have to take care of it. You have to do some maintenance. You can't just expect the landlord to fix everything, because honestly, the landlord doesn't have to fix everything. So I found that over my years of managing property, being a landlord, that is it's a tricky subject, and trying to get people to understand what their responsibilities are when they're leasing your property can be kind of hard. And it's something that you really have to understand as a landlord. Like, what are the things that I'm responsible to do? And it's going to vary state by state. So I could talk about what it's like here in Texas. I can talk about what it's like in Alabama, because we have rental properties over there. But I couldn't tell you what it's like in some other blue state like California or any of these other states where they think the landlord should be taking care of everything and wiping your ass if you can't do it for you. But I think that's something that maybe you could have a discussion on a Saturday or Sunday just on that topic of whose responsibility is it, or maybe you want me to help with that.
Yeah.
The other thing I would talk about is that not everybody finances their deals, right? So I've got plenty of owners, especially of the Asian persuasion, that they don't buy properties with mortgages. They buy properties cash. So this whole thing about debt servicing, doesn't apply to them. Another thing about putting properties in an LLC, yes, it'll protect you as far as liability goes, but you also have to look at how much more is my insurance cost going to be, because the insurance industry will charge you more if it's in an LLC. They want to see your credit score. For some reason, they care about your credit score when it comes to insuring property. So if the property is in an LLC, they're going to charge you more. And some insurance companies won't even write a policy for a property that's in an LLC. So there's different things to think about, and there's always more detail that you can dig into. So I'll stop right there.
Well, Travis, you brought up some good points. You did take notice. It wasn't a lot of major stuff going on in Texas in the top 20 5 affordable places to live, especially Florida now. Florida's not is priced itself out. The Carolinas are starting to price themselves out as well, which was very frothy for a while. It's all going inward, and what are the landlords doing differently in those markets? They're just kind of like some of this stuff is happening by accident, but rental prices are still getting more. People still want to live in a single family home. Multifamily rentals are kind of not as growing as quickly. I mean, there's a certain type of demographic that wants to live in a multifamily complex. Typically, it's for the benefits or the perks that a multifamily building is giving from the landlord, and that's not typically owned by an individual. It's owned by an institution or a fund, for that matter. So it's a little colder, but it's offering the amenities that they want because a lot of that demographic is more of a hybrid investor, a living in person. They might not stay there more than 2 to 3 years, so there's a different play there. I think insurance. I think insurance overall, from whether it's in the personal name or in the LLC, is now 20% more on average. I don't think that it does. I don't think it even matters whether it's in the personal name or the LLC anymore. I think there's some states that it's going to get to the point where the state's going to regulate the pricing because there's 2 carriers or 3 carriers only available to insure a property in that market. So I think insurance is a big concern. Obviously, I think tax is a very big concern because where do you get the money if industry is leaving and it's all residential? Like typically towns and counties or states dependent upon industry coming into their area to offset the tax base. If they're not seeing that, who's paying those taxes? Especially when you have 10 million more illegal immigrants in the country. So how do you balance that? You never will. It's going to be completely off balance because government creates expense, government creates inflation. So, how do you put controls in place? That's my question back to you, Travis. Like in your market, what are they doing to keep balance to taxes and insurance right now for your landlords?
What they've done as far as the property taxes, at least here in Montgomery County. So we're red. I'm not trying to say but ad valorem tax rate because the property values have skyrocketed, right? So thank God that they've lowered the tax rate. So our tax rate now is below 2% in most of the areas of Montgomery County. 3%, most of the newer neighborhoods. So that's one of the things they're doing. And as far as something when you were talking about the insurance that I just remembered, I was asking an insurance broker just last week, hey, can you run numbers for these 2 different properties for me? I want to see what the difference is in rates. One being a new build, one that's 20 years old. And the difference in rate for the same price house was
You're breaking up, Travis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you broke up a little bit. What was the difference between new construction and a regular renovation property?
It was twice. So a 20-year-old property was twice the price for insurance as opposed to the new home. So $1,500 versus $3,000 for a $250,000 house. So big difference.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's, like here in my market, the rents aren't really going up. They're kind of flat right now, but there's definitely more properties being added to the market for lease because people aren't able to sell their house. And, the rents that you're getting for most of the areas, you can't go buy a house in that neighborhood with 20% down, 25% down, and be able to make your debt service coverage ratio. You're not going to do it. You're going to be losing money every month, or maybe you're making $50. I mean, that just to me shows me that the house prices are too much. That wasn't our market before. Before, the C-class neighborhoods, you're getting your 1% rule or more. And in the A class neighborhoods, you're getting like 0.8. It was a little bit less, but you could still cash flow. Now it's total opposite, right? So a C class neighborhood, maybe you're getting that 1% rule, but most likely you're getting like 0.8, 0.9%. The other thing, when you're talking about all these markets that they're saying go and invest in, man, this sounds so much to me like 2005.
Oh yeah.
When the left and right coast were really getting expensive, so everybody's going inland. And that's why we went to Alabama back then in 2005, because that was the market that, was supposed to be doing okay and was going to appreciate because everything else was overpriced. So it's only a matter of time, right? So 2005 to 2007, that took 2 years for the market to explode or to implode. Markets that are overpriced are going to come down.
Yeah.
I don't care if we have housing inventory issues or what. It's going to come down.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think there's definitely foreclosures coming in. I don't know if it's going to be a tidal wave, but there's got to be a change in supply and demand right now. The lack of construction is making up the difference right now. And when a home ownership is now, the challenge is to be able to afford a down payment, because you don't even have the money to put a down payment, and they're just giving you 100% financing. All you're doing is setting somebody up for failure if they have no skin in the game. And there's changing lifestyle habits. There's nomadic workforce now. Like, people are just hybrid. They don't want any commitment to any market. Geographical transitions, industrial market softening, and the emergence of AI. We don't know where AI is going to take us when it comes to home ownership versus being a renter and then being a landlord. Like, where is AI going to take us, and how are we going to embrace that adaptability and stay updated and harness the technological tools, engaging in expert advice, and then, is how much co-working space and flexible space can be taken up in these empty buildings, right? They've proven a lot of industries can work hybrid. I work hybrid. I mean, do I have a workspace office in Philadelphia? Yes. Do I go to Miami and Westport, Connecticut all the time? No. I do it all from my laptop. My office is people ask me, where's your office? It's my shoes, size 10. And it all has to do with also being a landlord. You don't have to be where you are, where you own your properties. It's such a virtual environment now. A Zoom call is so common. Hey, let's get on Zoom. Okay, let's have that one-on-one. No problem. So I love where you're going with it, Travis, and I do agree with you that the shift in values need to come down. How they will over the next year or two, I hate to say, November is going to be a deciding factor, the good versus the bad. And the economic analysts that I'm watching, they definitely are favoring a new regime. I can tell you that for a fact. So we'll keep moving this train along. Thank you, Travis, for your participation. You changed up your picture. I never know it's you anymore. Is this a new account?
Yeah, I have two phones, and I was at the gym, and so that's why.
Oh, you got a burner phone. You're shady like that. Okay, I see where Travis is coming from. Okay.
It's his Breaking Bad phone.
He's an OG, man. He's original OG, man. Original gangster. It's all good.
There you go.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Amy. Robert, good morning and welcome. Hope all is well. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion, the fundamentals of owning rental property. Robert, going once. Robert going twice. We'll come back to Robert. I know he's up here. He's a colleague of mine. He's done some new construction with me as well out in the Carolinas. So hopefully he'll be able to participate. Mr. Justin Jefferson, good morning and welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, the fundamentals of owning rental properties.
Thanks for the room this morning, man. But it's all good. I'm a investor licensed down here, and I'm a broker down here Louisiana, and primarily do construction, trying to build and do other things. Then I did actual sales and built up a number of skills and licenses just to kind of be serve myself and my client base. So that's kind of who I am. But as far as fundamental property and so on and so forth, I believe, well, I guess I always say, hey, you got to start with your end in mind. Are you doing single family homes, and why? Multifamily, and why are you doing? Let's just eight, but are you jumping into the big stuff? As far as multifamily, and why are you doing it big? I think you got to know what direction you're headed and what the realistic goal is for you to be able to kind of set yourself up with a good set of plans and a good roadmap forward. So that the first thing I'll say. Obviously, you kind of have yourself a team of numbers, and put together so that you can be able to attack on deals. But looking for things that are good pieces with equity, being able to build in some equity to your deals, I think are key for you being able to sustain in the long term. Rental properties, the left doors, a lot of times risking, vacancy. Vacancy could be potentially your bigger issue, right? If fewer doors you have, and issues change depending on as you scale up. Worry about different things. You're gonna worry about all of the same things, but you're gonna worry about different things. I would say with your larger property, I think maintenance would be a bigger concern than vacancy, but don't get it twisted. They're both concerns. So I really just threw a bunch of stuff out there, Joe. But I feel like knowing what your end goal is to retire in 5 years or something like that should have a lot to do with how you make your decisions, when and where you make your decisions, because each play affects next step, if that makes sense. So that's just rental portfolio, whether it's to retire, whether it's to do other things. You gotta have a game plan and know what each piece you add to the puzzle is gonna do to that game plan, how it's gonna adjust it, whether for the good or the bad. It is somewhat of a game that you have to learn the rules to, and get good players on your team so that you can get the victories you need. It's not a competition, but it is somewhat of a game. So that's just my thoughts this morning, Joe.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And the fundamentals to me is always going to go back to who is in your power team, what is your economic health of your portfolio and yourself, and your personal health. Okay? So you got to look at all that. Like, are you reserve heavy or light? How is your maintenance and your management of the property? Do you have a property management company, and do you have your own personal maintenance group that you go to as well, up and above the management company? Do you have bookkeeping and accounting services in place? Do you have a CPA that understands your real estate investing needs and goals? Do you have a good attorney in place for leasing, for eviction, for litigation, for asset structuring, whether it's for partnerships or sole proprietor? Understanding your market, identifying a new market, understanding your affordability, also experimenting with newer type of investing, whether it's an STR or an MTR, or do you want to stick with the traditional 12-month lease? Okay, there's different ways to navigate your fundamentals depending on what you're trying to do, whether it's your fifth property, your first property, or the 20th property. You always got to be reevaluating and re-underwriting your files to sharpen the goal sets to growth, okay, or stability. Now, not everybody wants to own 100 properties. They're happy maybe at 10 properties, okay? Do those 10 properties make the most amount of money, and why aren't they? Are you reevaluating your insurance every year? Are you reevaluating the taxes every year? Are you reevaluating the deferred maintenance every year? Are you looking at the utilities correctly? What are the responsibilities back to the tenant? How's the landscape or maintenance of the property? How's the roof? How's the mechanicals? Are there warranties on all the mechanicals on your property? These are things you need to think about. These are basic fundamentals. It just looks real good on TV, and then when you get smacked into reality of being an investor, it's like getting punched in the jaw by Mike Tyson. Amy, any final thoughts to our discussion this morning, the fundamentals of owning rental properties?
Sure, Joe. Thanks for having me on. It's been a really good discussion. So I think, as you wrap up, I think the most important thing is people realize that when you're real estate investing, it's a business, and you have to own it like a business. So you have to make sure that you're capitalized well, you're managing the things that you need to manage, and you're constantly learning. I mean, you need to understand your industry, and if you don't understand your industry, then you're not going to do well. So that was one of the things when I first started real estate investing, I was constantly learning, going to networking seminars and all these other different things. And if you're not doing that, all you're doing is shooting yourself in the foot. So it's been a great discussion today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amy. And I appreciate that. And, listen, we're doing a couple things here through the Creative Bird Strategies podcast. Couple things. We are now having a monthly mastermind every second Monday of the month in Philadelphia, which we'll also have on Zoom and live. So I'm dedicating an evening live and in Zoom the second Monday of every month. We are adding that to the clubhouse, hopefully somehow in some capacity. I'll be touring various association expos, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, NAR. I'll be in Boston. I'll be also in Florida teaching some CE courses for some associations down there as well. I'll be at the New York Real Estate Investors Expo. So we're getting out there in front of people. I'm still extending that opportunity for the CE instruction on asset-based lending in any state in the country. We're offering worksheets to make sure our attendees and the people that listen into our podcast stay educated and understand how to pencil a deal down. We're offering strategy discussions. Whether you want to talk to one of us up here, one of the moderators, or myself, let's have a deeper discussion with somebody that knows what they're doing, that can help you with the agenda, not to make money from you, but to make benefit for you in regards to your growth in your business. It's easy to close a loan and make a commission. That's easy. But to make sure the person's buying correctly is more important for the return business. So having a deeper discussion with your power team is more important than ever before. And I think that's the basic fundamentals a lot of people miss. They think they could do it all themselves. So I think this was a great discussion. Tomorrow's discussion, I love you to get ready for it. We're going to be doing a comparative between DSCR versus cap rate. We've never tackled that subject before, but I think it's a subject that's a necessary evil. And I don't think enough people understand the differences. But I look forward to that discussion at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank our sponsors, Mr. Yarl Perkins of Pergatech. I'd like to thank MB Capital, your unsecured business line of credit program. I'd like to thank Realty 4-in-1 with Linda Pelagas, your national publication and national event producer, and Landmark Capital, where I'm senior loan analyst. My name is Joe Scarice, co-host of the Creative Bird Strategies House and podcast here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m., every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And my quote this morning: true success is not about impressing other people. Everybody have a great Saturday morning. Have a great day, and we'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. I'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds. And thank you.